I wanted to get to the point where you can't have a conversation about black men politically without having to refer specifically to our needs. But right now, there are so many politicians in particular that are comfortable with avoiding us. Because for the most part, black men have been relatively quiet. We talk about the community. We let women speak on their behalf or what they want. And we're often oblivious to how much what they're talking about can separate from our needs. And we don't say much about it. Now it's time to be vocal and adamant about what our needs are.
One thing that's been very interesting to see in this particular election season is that we're seeing, at least for myself, the first time in my lifetime, pronounced black male agency in the political arena. Any man who wants to lead his community, his family, has to understand that he has to have some say, if not a great say, in the direction of his family and community, and that starts nowhere more clearer than the ballot box. Of course, people will argue one way or the other as to who they think is going to win or who they want to win, but I don't know if that's necessarily the most important part of this exercising of black male agency, as much as it is the fact that we're finally seeing a group of black men say, hey, listen, we are looking for something out of this political process. And to hear Dr. Hasan Johnson speak on it is wonderful to see.
You know, for a demographic that has been so wedded to one party, you would think that they could receive a similar level of dedication, at least when it comes to answering questions directly related to them. They could be named for what they are. You would think, right? When she talks about Israel, she is unapologetic in pointing out that she believes they have the right to defend themselves and protect themselves. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't tiptoe around it. She doesn't suggest, anybody that lives in that part of the world. She's very clear. She says Israel. But when talking about black men, the emphasis is on everybody, and on the back end, it'll benefit black men. See, this kind of approach is one of the reasons black men are so dubious, because we understand that those who are behind her in many respects are primarily concerned about their own demographics, whether it's AIPAC, whether it's black women, you can name it. Each group is there for their own political interests. Now, the difference in the black community, however, is usually the men and women in a given community aren't split. In the black community, it's a very different dynamic. And her presidency speaks to the very heart of that frustration, that contention between black men and women. And black women are very concerned about pushing their agenda to Kamala and hoping that her presidency will yield them an opportunity to advance without their men. She's willing to support that dynamic, which is one of the reasons she hasn't spoken on black men until now. And even the way she's going about it is so ham-fisted and general that in many ways it doesn't speak to black men at all.
What is so exciting about this particular time is that we're finally seeing black men, my demographic, stand up and say, listen, I'm not going to just go along to get along. If I'm going to participate in this act of civil service in voting, what do I get out of it? Because as long as I can remember, it's always been, this is the way you're supposed to vote because the black people vote this way. But what do we get back out of it is a question that I've never really heard black men stand up and voice until now. And it's beautiful to hear.
I just want to highlight for you that just in that few minutes, just in what you saw, that was roughly about 5 minutes. That was the only time she directly referenced black men in any kind of policy related area. And did not give any policy-based answers. She gave a wide breadth of suggestions, aspirations, but those aspirations were targeted for everybody. And again, on the back end, black men should benefit. But we've seen this thing going on for decades. This reminds me of damn near, trickle down Reaganism, right? This will eventually benefit you. It'll get to you at some point. One of the features of trickle down economics is that it didn't get to the bottom of the people who needed it most. And I don't think that what she's talking about is actually going to benefit black males. This is one of the reasons that we on this channel have been talking about what black men want for the last 4 years. We've been very explicit about that. And I bring this up every show on purpose because we have already done this work. We've already had these conversations, and we ourselves tend to be very limited in our willingness to talk about our own political interests.
I refer often to the 18-point black male political agenda by Dr. Hasan Johnson, because for black men to practice the agency that is required to build the families that the black community or the offshoot of the black community that even passport bros are going to foster are going to be successful, we got to have some ground rules. And these ground rules here point straight to that. There are some people that will say that you want this person to win this election, or you want that person to win the election, or you're doing something that's going to hurt the black community as it is. But you heard Dr. Hasan Johnson talk about the trickle down idea, and we know it doesn't work. And so if we're going to look past these next 4 years, it's going to have to be about black men saying, we need this out of the political process. Otherwise, we can't perform in a way that's going to make it possible for us to build the families and do the things that are necessary. And it's not only clear that people in this particular community understand black men need some things from the political process, but other men in other unlikely places are understanding that there's not much to be gained on either side for black men in this election. And when black men try to push back, the pushback is inevitable when you don't get in line. I featured this gentleman before in some of his reactions in terms of just dating, and he's quite liberal. But what's interesting, and I think even he realizes this, is that if you're going to have any sway in elections or even just have power in your household, at times you have to say, hey, listen, we have to move a certain way or we're not going to get anything done. Or better yet, we're not going to have any leverage. Something that he clearly understands. If you are hook, line, and sinker for one party or the other, you're not going to get anything. And he's going to try and argue this, and you know what's coming back.
Black women, if there was ever a time to listen to black men, this is it. This is now y'all's time to listen to what we as black men have to say. A new poll conducted by the NAACP that was released Friday found that more than 25% of black men under 50 years old support Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. Black men are the most oppressed class of men on this planet.
It's why no one is really taking the time to talk to those young black men and say, why have you become disillusioned with the traditional voting patterns that maybe your parents or your grandparents did? Instead, it's, you know what's coming.
Period, point blank, end of story. I don't care how you slice it or dice it. That's what the facts of the case are. Black women, you are the least protected class because black men are the most targeted class. If black men are telling you that they would rather support Donald Trump over Kamala Harris, they're telling you that for a reason. And it is literally time for us to understand why. Kamala Harris fought repeatedly to keep nonviolent black male offenders behind bars. She is the same woman that says she will not do anything specifically for black people in one interview, but then says, well, we have to create economic opportunities for black men, which is, and when asked how she's going to do that, she gives no real legitimate answer. She gives no real legitimate answer because she doesn't have a real legitimate answer. She is not going to do anything for you, black women. She's not going to do anything for black men. At least under Donald Trump, more black businesses were started. More PPP loans were given out. More black people had more jobs and had more money coming into their house under Donald Trump than under Kamala Harris.
What you're hearing here is logic, right? I'm not saying I like one party or the other. That's not what this is about. This is about, if you cannot have this conversation, you cannot build a community. Point blank, you can't. If the political decision is going to be, I like her, therefore we are all supposed to vote for her, or this party, or this group of people, or these policies, over what is the policy that's going to help us as a unit, as a family, as a community, as a society. If you cannot have that conversation, you cannot build anything. And I think this new exercise of black male agency understands this. And this is why he's called Dr. Hooley. I don't think he's a doctor. Is coming to this realization that if we don't have any leverage, or we're going to stand for one party or the other, hook, line, and sinker, we get nothing.
So I got one question for you. God forbid I start talking about how inflation was still lower at 1.9% under Donald Trump than it is at 5.4% under Kamala Harris's current partner. So the only question I have for y'all is this. What will you choose? You gonna choose somebody that's gonna lie to you and all my divine nine brothers, it's a code switch. Put on the black accent when it's convenient. Or you gonna side with the guy that never acts like he's black, that never pretends to be black. He is who he is, and he's gonna do. He does what he says he's gonna do. I don't know about y'all, but I'm voting for the guy that says I'm not taxing overtime. I'm voting for the guy that's gonna try to pass a law where no taxes on overtime. I'm voting for him because that's more money in my pocket. That's more food on my table. That's longer as I get to keep this fine roof over my head. You
don't have to look any further than his comment section of a gentleman who generally is on the more liberal women's side of things when it comes to black male-female relationships. But when he takes this particular stance in this particular arena of politics, if you will, the pushback is inevitable. I'm voting for her, don't care. I don't approve this message. Black women are least protected because a lot of black men don't commit to their homes. And I had a father in my home. The lack of accountability shut my ears off. Harris 2024. This is the most uneducated stuff I listen to all day. And black men lie to us more than anybody. Good night. We're not voting for Trump. Black men broke the law when they went to jail. Kamala started a program to bypass black men going to jail. You can look that up. You won't be getting OT. He plans on removing all OT. If we vote for Trump health-wise, we black women will be near death in these hospitals. God knows these black men will not support us while bringing their babies into this earth. Voting for Kamala. Black women, you have always been on the right side of history. Do not follow black men on this issue. Any good that came from the term Trump served when we were from Democrats. You'd rather kiss your oppressor's feet than vote for black women. Black men are the weak link in the black community. It will take black women and then not probably doing what he's suggesting in order for them to move forward. But what you can see is that the rise of black male agency is essentially coming out of, if we don't exercise agency, then we're never going to get anything, because this cycle is going to just keep repeating itself.
As I watched that interview, I wasn't surprised. It was very reflective of what we've seen before, except in that usually they can ignore us altogether, not bring us up, right? I've not heard her talk about black men at all. Oh, at least we came up. But by the end of her little answer, we weren't even anywhere in it.
This, I believe, is a very exciting time for black men, because this is the first time that we're seeing a group of black men in unison say, listen, if we don't have any leverage, we're never going to get anything from either party. The idea that you're going to continue voting for the same person without even making the suggestion that you might not vote for that person is like walking into a car dealership and letting that person know the minute you walk in there, I'm going to buy the car. That means you are going to get the least amount of perks for what you pay for that price possible. But if you walk into that car dealership and say, I would like a car, but I don't have to buy it here, let me hear what your offer is. That is an offer that is off the table, because we have taken away our leverage as a black community. And it's been that way for a very long time. And a group of black men are finally saying, enough. If this is the game we're going to play, it is a perpetually losing one. So if we do not exercise any black agency or black male agency, we will continue to get nothing, especially with changing demographics suggesting that the time that we could actually get something is coming to a close anyways. I'm just happy to be a part of a group of black men reevaluating our power in the landscape, reevaluating how we're going to lead our families, our communities when we start creating them. And understanding that if indeed our political ideas or what we're looking to get out of the process is going to diverge from black women, maybe it's unfortunate, but maybe it's just something that has to happen. If they are going to get something, it's in their best interest to pursue it. But if they're going to leave us behind, then we're going to have to exercise more black male agency. Not just in the political process, but in family rearing, in relationships, and how we move through the world, however we choose to move forward. Because if we don't have the gumption to do it ourselves, can we really call ourselves men in the first place? Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. Catch you next video. Take care.